Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Tuesday, June the 16th. As we like to do once a week, we're chatting with our good friend George Rodriguez from South Texas. George, welcome. It's always a great honor to have you.
Good to be here.
All right. What happened in Waco, Central Texas? Did you get any of that rain?
We did get some. We got a little bit of glancing of it. We got a
Yeah.
little bit of the glancing, the rain as well as the wind. In fact, there were several branches in my backyard that came down that I did not expect. It I we thought it was just going to be just some rain, but
Right.
really caught the wind caught us really by surprise.
Well, I was just absolutely, I had no idea. I think it was what, Monday morning or Sunday morning, you wake up and you see these floods, stories of flood in Waco,
Yes.
and you go, my goodness, what happened?
Um,
What in the
there were
world
several
happened here?
several rivers just north of us right here in the hill country in the Kerrville area where
Yeah.
we've had the flash floods. There were several creeks and rivers that were very high, and again, it was one of those things that caught everybody by surprise, like last time.
Yeah. Now, this was actually, now you mentioned Kerrville, so this was actually close to that tragedy last year where the kids
Yeah.
were killed, right?
Yep.
Okay. All
Very
right.
close.
Wow. No, I was like, I'm looking at we were supposed to get a little bit of rain ourselves, but nothing, obviously. Nothing with nothing like that at all. And I see Waco and I go, oh my gosh, you see these highways flooded and people stuck in the water. I mean, it was pretty did you hear anything about any death reports or
I have not. That I didn't hear. I mean,
yeah,
there were several rescues here in the area, of course.
okay.
People driving into the water when they shouldn't be. But no, I have not seen anything about deaths.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was. I mean, the scenes were absolutely incredible. I mean, if anybody can go to YouTube and see them, it's just absolutely incredible. I guess even in some of the news sites too, websites,
Yeah.
the different channels in the area, you can see them as well. Well, let me begin by mentioning I have a post over at the American Thinker today, and it was inspired by an article that David Catron, Catron, one of my favorite writers over at Spectator, and he wrote an article talking about what happened in California, where the Hispanic vote was a lot more friendly to Steve Hilton than it had been to other Republicans for some time. And from that, I went on to write my post. And clearly, Hilton is at a disadvantage because the numbers are not with him. So he's probably going to lose. But I think he's apparently going to put up a much better campaign than previous Republicans. And I think, George, what's happening out in California, particularly in some of the big cities like LA and definitely LA, is that people are just fed up with government that doesn't work. It's not so much Democrat, Republican ideology, liberal versus conservative. It's the old story of you want to go to a mechanic who can fix your car. You don't really care who he is or what his name is or what the color of his skin is. You just want to make sure he can fix your car. And the Democrats right now in California are simply not capable of governing. They're not capable of doing basic things like crime, like protecting your grandmother when she walks down to La Bodega, or educating your kids because they're graduating, with can't read and write at the level they graduate. So I think that's what's happening. The rejection is not so much ideology or immigration, or it's simply the Democrats cannot govern. And that's honestly, George, that's where I see it. That's how I see it.
I agree. I mean, it is a situation where I just don't think that the Democrats were prepared. The liberal thinking has been to play the race game.
Yes.
And what they have ignored is that Hispanics, whether they are Mexican Americans, whether they are Cuban Americans, whether they are Puerto Ricans, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they have experienced the immigrant experience. And as all immigrants, whether they were Irish, Italian, German, whoever, they eventually become Americans, and they become very practical in their view. And this is something that the Democrats have refused to accept or acknowledge. They think that ideology, which plays very, very well with young kids who have nothing else to do other than sit in ivory towers at universities and think, they have, for a long time thought that. And the same thing with liberals. You've got liberals like the Castro twins who, have had literally, in my opinion, because of affirmative action, they've had everything handed to them. And so now all of a sudden they think, they view things in these liberal manners with this liberal point of view, but it just doesn't fit to the practical day-to-day existence of normal Hispanics. And that's what you're seeing. You're right. They're tired of the homelessness. They're tired of the high price of gasoline. They're tired of losing farms because they would rather take care of minnows in creeks. It doesn't make sense. It sounds great if you are a rich person in San Francisco, but practically, then help.
No, and things as basic as picking up the garbage.
Yeah.
You see these videos of LA and you see the garbage everywhere. And let me tell you something, I have actually had people go to LA and tell me this. So I'm not just looking at videos that have been edited or maybe videos that have been spliced to make LA look bad. I've had people who go to LA on business trips and come back and they say, we can't believe what I've seen. I had a friend of mine who went to school out in USC years ago and went back. And he said he thought he was in a third world city, LA. It's ridiculous. He said, the city, nothing works. Everything's a mess. The garbage, the people laying out in the streets with drugs. And I guess San Francisco is even worse, although apparently they're changing a little bit in San Francisco.
Well, San Francisco has a new district attorney, which again, it reflects this rebellion that is going on. And I think that, Democrats have got to understand that the liberal approach to life doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. And the liberal approach to life doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work with economics and politics.
Right. And what's interesting is this fellow from CNN, Zachariah, what I think is Jeffrey Zachariah. I think you know who he is. He is a commentator over there. And he recently appeared on the Bill Maher show and then had a commentary segment on CNN saying, hey guys, the blue city approach is not working. More and more blue cities are demonstrating that they cannot run cities. They may be very good at ideology.
That's it.
And they may be very good at playing the race card every time somebody wants an explanation, but they're not very good at doing the basic things. And then he shared a statistic, George, about how expensive, let's say, a public school is in New York City compared to, let's say, a public school in Florida or a public school in many red states. And he's saying his message, and this guy is no Republican, but he's a practical man. And his message to the Democrats is, hey guys, you got to prove that you can govern. You got to prove that you can pick up the garbage and protect citizens against crime.
They can't govern school districts, which they.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure.
And we're going to talk. I would imagine about the politics in Texas, but we've got a former teacher running a very, very pro public education candidate running for governor. Right. And she is sounding more and more about we need more money for the public schools.
Right.
Why?
as if they don't. Yeah, apparently they don't have enough.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I know. I think you're talking about Gina Hinojosa, right?
yeah.
Yeah, the governor, the Democrat
I
for
can't
governor.
imagine how much more money you need to give schools so that they can be public
You
schools,
can
so that they can
you
be
can
successful.
you can quadruple the amount of
Exactly.
money giving to the schools in San Antonio, and all that's going to do is make a lot of bureaucrats happy, but it's
Yeah,
not going to resolve the
exactly.
problem. So anyway, I just thought it was fascinating that you're getting that message out of California that people, especially Hispanics, are starting to look at results and they're saying, okay, don't tell me that you hate Trump. Tell me how you're going to pick up the garbage.
The garbage. Exactly.
As simple as that. All right. Well, let's briefly touch on this very interesting story this week where the Trump administration, in conjunction with the government of Venezuela, took out, if not the leaders, one of the leaders of Tren de Agua with
Yes.
some kind of a, I guess, drone operation or
Yeah.
however they did it. And I argue, George, that I think this is going to happen a lot more.
Yep.
That I think many of these new governments in Latin America, whether it's Peru or I guess soon they're still counting, they're down to like the last half of 1% or something. But eventually it looks like the right is going to win there. It's just like we hope they win in Colombia and so on. But many of these leaders have run on the basis that, hey, look, we're going to try to do what they're doing in El Salvador, which is working very well. And the United States is saying, we'll help you. We've got the technology. We know how to find them. Just work with us and we'll eliminate them together. I think that's going to be, I'm not going to say the Monroe Doctrine, but that's going to be the new approach to dealing with many of these people. And Venezuela is not necessarily the first one because we've been taking out boats here quite a bit. But if you're the head of one of these organizations that has been designated a terrorist organization by the Trump administration, I think you better be very careful where you go out for a ride, because we've got you through the satellites. We know where you are. We know exactly where you are 24 hours a day, and all we need is somebody to say go, and we're going to take you out. I mean, it's that simple, George.
I think it has got it is a warning to all of the cartels and gangs. I mean, there's no two ways around it. It is a warning to them, and it's got to have them nervous. It's got to, it's been very, very interesting. We've talked about how the president of Mexico has reacted to those two CIA agents that were killed in that accident right under their noses, and how she has initially she was, trying to back off, and then all of a sudden she said, no, we're going to be supportive, and then now she's being very, very quiet about it. I mean, Latin American dictators have been profiting from the crime, and that alone should make them targets for our law enforcement and our military. And I think that it's dawning on these guys. I would love to be a fly on the wall to hear what they're talking about at this point.
Well, what's happening too is that we're more and more governments have been elected. Whether it's
Friendly
Costa Rica, friendly at least to the idea that we need to eliminate this problem.
Correct.
Because they see the threat of the problem. I mean, the reality is this narco violence is the biggest threat to their sovereignty. Much bigger threat to their sovereignty than the United States.
Yes.
I mean, these countries, like you take a country like Ecuador, it's a very small country. So they may not have the resources to fight well-financed cartels, So I think you're going to see more and more presidents of many of these countries say to the United States, hey, look, we'll work with you. We'll do what they did in Venezuela, which was a joint operation. Now, to be honest with you, and I mean I don't say this in a disrespectful way about, the president of Venezuela. I don't know how much input they actually had into the details of the operation, because I'm pretty sure that we found the person and we probably went to Venezuela and said, here he is. Do you want us to take him out, or would you like to do it with us?
Yeah.
So if you're the head of one of these groups, you're probably going to be thinking twice about, who you're hanging around with, where you're going, because we can take you out. That's the amazing thing. You know, we've got the technology. We know where you are any time of the day. Incredible. So,
And they, it, like I said, it's got to filter down, to the streets even here. They took out the jefe. Now what are they going to do with me?
right. No, that's exactly right. And that's the not just down at the street, but the lieutenant and the people in between,
Yeah.
the infrastructure has to worry about it. Well, let me bring up one quick story here before we get to Texas politics, and that is this absolutely incredible story, depressing really story of the kids that were lost at the border. Like 300,000 of them. How do you lose 300,000 kids, George? I mean, that's almost that's you almost got to do it on purpose. I don't know how in the world you lose that many kids, but you're down in the border. You know the border patrol people as well as anybody. I mean, were they just putting these people through without any regard whatsoever for the kids, George?
I mean, it was a business. Let's begin first of all that it was a business, that the cartels were helping, or not even the cartels. There were a lot of freelancers were also working in Mexico, and it was very, very easy for someone to give one of these freelancers or the cartel money to get their kid across. And the reason that they were getting the kids across was because an adult on this side, once you were reunified with a child, then by definition, you stayed indefinitely with a court hearing. You were assigned automatically a court hearing. And these court hearings obviously were getting longer and longer. We've got court hearings now that are people waiting for court hearings 8 years into the future. So it was getting worse and worse. I mean, it was the whole system that was set up, in my opinion, with the intention of allowing people to stay longer. However, in the process, the children were used as the tool. So, perfect example. 4 years ago, I was remembering the situation where I by Del Rio, and just happened to hear that a rancher had come across 2 little kids, and it made big news. We went over there. Fox News covered it. ABC covered it, of course, from their point of view. But there were 2 little kids, one that was barely 2 years old, and his older brother, who was 5 years old. And what happened was that the coyote had brought the 2 kids across in full view of the Border Patrol, brought the 2 kids across. The kids had pinned to them the phone number and address and name of their mother in Houston. And, they were just left right there on the street on the bank. They had been there on the bank for about 2-3 hours, dirty and hungry. And, they were found by the rancher.
These were little kids we're talking about.
Little kids, 5 years old, 2 years old, 5 years old, 2 years old.
Totally helpless.
And so they were reunified with their mother. Now, picture if an American did the same thing and left a kid at Walmart, what would happen? But yet our system at that point, all they did was call the mother. The mother came and picked them up. Or no, they delivered the kids to the mother. And, who knows what? I mean, it was a business that was being utilized as a loophole for, and consequently, the number of kids that were brought across. I mean, every day, there were hundreds of children that were being brought across with little notes or no notes at all, because they were reunified with an adult. Nobody knew if that adult was really related or not.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole sheer number of it, 300,000, is mind-boggling. Now, there was, you're probably familiar with Pedro Pan, which is the program.
That was a complete different situation.
Night and day.
Completely.
Yes. For one thing, there were 14,000 kids.
Yes.
It was over a period of like 3 years.
And they were flying in
right,
into areas where they were being vetted, where they were being checked
sure,
on, where the parents or a relative would verify that they were picking them up. No such thing like that
right,
here in San Antonio. Even at the migrant center here in San Antonio, kids were being picked up there, and local police were used to tell me that they didn't know who was picking them up. They were just
right,
somebody would pull up, they would walk out a couple of the kids, put them in a car, and they're gone.
right. The Pedro Pan program, for those who may not be familiar with it, is a program with Cuban children. And that was between, I think, 1960 and right up to the missile crisis, which would have been 62. What about 2 years where these Cuban kids the parents would take them to the airport in Havana. The kid would fly to Miami. The airline attendants or the stewardesses were aware of these kids being in the plane, so they sort of took extra care of them. And then when they landed in Miami, at the very least, the Catholic Church was involved in processing them. Now, I'm not saying that every one of those kids turned out to be a perfect example, because there were some kids who had problems. It's not easy being separated from your parents at a young age to begin with. So, and many parents did it out of sheer, they wanted to get their kids out because they feared communism and all of that. Many parents later reunited with their kids, so at least there was a happy ending. But my whole point is that there was at least some organization and some accountability for this. None in this program.
Well, and there was also a big difference, because the Castro government, the Cuban government, didn't want to release these people. So, it was a trickle.
Right.
On the contrary, on the situation that we had under the Biden administration was it was a stampede to get across.
Sure.
So, how can you control a stampede?
You can't. So anyway, so I think they have found now. The other day, the Secretary of Homeland Security was saying that they have found many of them.
400, and they found at least about 400,000 of them, but
wow,
there's still tons missing.
And if you remember, George, there was an ICE operation in California sometime last year where ICE went into a farm in California, and these kids were actually being used as farm workers.
Exactly.
In a farm in California. I mean, look how obscene is that? And these were the ones in California were like teenagers who were being used as farm workers in a farm illegally, of course, in California. But then, of course, California tells you that nobody does that, but yet ICE found these kids. Well, let's come to Texas, because the campaign for the Senate, Paxton versus Tallarico, is starting to take shape a little bit. And the latest poll that I've seen has, I think, Paxton up by 5. One poll that I saw. The other betting company, or whatever they call themselves, has 82% chance that Paxton's going to win. So it seems like things are moving in Paxton's direction, which is good, because I plan to vote for Paxton. But Tallarico is really undergoing quite a makeover here. Yeah. He's like, now all of a sudden, he had an interview the other day with, I don't know how that fellow calls himself a journalist, because he didn't ask him any tough questions. But it was like, he's now saying, well, I'm a law and order Democrat, and I opposed Joe Biden's border policies because I was listening to my fellow Democrats in the Texas House who were telling me how terrible the situation was down there. George, if that's true, he certainly kept it to himself.
Again, Tallarico has never been under the spotlight like he is now. He came from a very safe Democrat district. He was surrounded by Democrats who pushed their wild agenda, their very liberal leftist agenda, and he played along. He made statements. He was a duck in water, so to speak. and he didn't have to worry about it. But now, all of a sudden, he wants to be a Texas senator. And now, all of a sudden, people are asking him, well, why? What did you say then? Or why did you say that then?
Right.
And he doesn't know. I mean, he's backpedaling like crazy.
Right. Well, one thing he said, and you can confirm it, you probably know this better than as well as anybody. He said that when he first ran, he flipped a red county or red district in order to win the House. Now, maybe he did. I don't know. I had never heard that before.
Yeah, I
thought he was in Austin, in the Austin.
He is in Austin. He is in Austin. And he didn't flip it. What happened was that there was a redistricted.
Oh, okay.
Back in what was it? In 2020.
Right. So they basically they made the district more Democrat.
Yeah.
Well, like they do with these districts all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, it was, that sounds very, very good. And people that don't know it, journalists that don't know it, or that want to play along with the narrative, they'll run with it. But the fact of the matter is, it was a friendly district to begin with.
Right. Otherwise, he wouldn't have won. There's no way he flips a red district saying the nonsense that he's saying.
The vast majority of the Democrats, look at the vast majority of the Democrats in the Texas State Senate and in the Texas legislature. They are either women or men of color.
Right.
Because that's who they appeal to, and that's who plays their game. This guy was one of the few, maybe the only one in the Senate, who is a white male, straight white male. Well, we don't know about the straight part, but who is a white male. And I mean, you've got to ask yourself, well, why is it that the Democrats are so anxious for diversity and they can't field a diverse person? I mean, they had a very liberal black woman that was running, and Tellerico beat her. Well,
he did, and I'm beginning to wonder she may have been a better candidate because at least she doesn't have to back down on anything.
Yeah, I think she would have been a more honest one.
She just say, "Hey, this is who I am, and take it or leave it." But no, it is remarkable. Apparently, so if you listen to him in that interview, he flipped a red district. He was always a law and order Democrat. He always spoke out against the Biden border policy. And, when people are digging up things, they're finding out that, for example, he gave a speech. He was actually critical of President Obama at one point, calling him the porter in chief of President Obama. I guess this is before he got into politics.
Yeah.
But I mean, this guy, and that's going to get him in trouble, trying to be cute like this. That's what's going to get him in trouble, because if he was willing to own up whatever he said and say, "Hey, look, this is my position, take it or leave it."
And again, if he's calling, for example, if he's calling Obama the porter in chief, what he is indicating is that he doesn't want deportations.
Right.
Well, what kind of border policy is that?
That's right. He also said something, and I have a post about this coming out tomorrow. He also said that he spoke very harshly of ICE, saying that ICE was lawless and arresting people and detaining people against their will. I don't know if he was talking about the Obama policy or the Trump policy, but either way, he said that. And again, I think he's making a mistake here. Not, he has bad positions. We can agree on that. But he's making a mistake of sort of walking away from it instead of standing up and saying, "Hey, yeah, I did say it and I own it. And this is why I said it. If you don't like it, vote for Paxton."
Yeah.
Which is what I think, by the way, Crockett would have done.
Yep.
I think so. I think Crockett
he's going to try to play the middle, and he's just going to get run over.
I think so. Now, one quick, I know it's early, George. The campaign probably won't get underway until after Labor Day, but how do you see the districts in the South? There were 5 new districts drawn up down there. How do you, just quickly, how do you see the two parties doing at the moment down in South Texas, George?
I think at the best, the Republicans will edge out. At least in 4 of them will win. At the worst, it's a toss-up. the Democrats are having a terrible time in finding good uh, uh, good candidates. They really are. The candidates that they've got right now are just not are just not that good. They don't look smart. They don't talk smart. They have problems like this Bobby Polito. Bobby Polito, they pulled him out of nowhere. He is a Tejano music star, well known. That's what they thought, I guess, would win. But again, the scrutiny is on, and all of a sudden they're finding out all sorts of little things about his past, about his behavior, about his comments, and I just don't think he's going to. I mean, he's really, really worried about losing ground right now. I mean, while the Republicans were in a runoff and they were paying attention to each other, nobody was paying attention to Bobby Polito. Now all of a sudden, boom, the focus is on him, and he's trying to figure out, how to backtrack. The same thing with Congressman Cuellar. Congressman Cuellar now has a formal candidate against him, and he's starting to backtrack. He never did anything wrong. It was all a mistake, and blah blah blah.
Well, I think that, remember what happened to Beto O'Rourke and the YouTube videos.
Yes.
He made when he ran for president in 2020, in order to win attract the left-wing Democrat primary voter, he made a bunch of idiotic videos. And one of the ones that really came back to haunt him was the one about the AR-15, where he was going to take it away from you. Well, that doesn't go far. That doesn't go well down here. And the problem is, you cannot erase. Well, I guess you can erase the video, but other people have
many people have already made comments.
Right, or copies of it. Yeah. So you may delete your account, but you cannot delete the product that you put on your account. So that's I think Tallarico is going to be suffering from the same problem, because
I'm very optimistic about South Texas. I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I was scared, but unless something terrible happens, and now that the Iran war is over technically, and the price of oil is going to go down, you're going to see a whole lot more movement in that direction.
Right. Well, yeah, because I think the whole issue of gasoline prices probably may not even be an issue in a couple of months.
Yeah,
because it may very well drop below $3 pretty soon here. All right, George. Well, as always, it's a great honor to have you. Great pleasure to have you. And I guess we'll just look forward to the next one, and we'll see what is the next wisdom. What is
the next shoe to drop with Tallarico?
Yeah, we'll see what did the Law and Order Democrats say that we're going to be learning about next week. I love that, Law and Order Democrat. Oh, by the way, he said in that interview that he's running for the LBJ seat. That's what he said. So he's a Law and Order Democrat like LBJ. That's what,
maybe they'll try to stuff a voting box just like LBJ.
Yeah. That was an interesting. That was a great story, by the way. If anybody wants to read about
Box 13.
How Texas elections can be exciting, read how LBJ won the 1948 Senate election. It's quite a story. Well, George, as always, thank you for your time, and we'll chat the next time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Our good friend George Rodriguez, and touching base here with the politics of Texas, and this latest thing from Tallarico, where now all of a sudden, he's backing down and running away from positions that he took, and people, like as we're seeing up in Maine, there are some Democrats who frankly will accept anything in the name of winning an election. We're certainly seeing that in Maine, but I don't think that that's going to fly down here, because he has a very obvious record when it comes to the border and things he said, and it's going to be hard for him, I think, to overcome that record. I just don't know how you can delete videos that he's made saying a lot of these things that he said over over time. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.